Karen Andrews joins us now from our Brisbane studio. Karen Andrews, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Helen. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, before we talk science and engineering, I will get to that, I promise. I want to ask you about this cabinet leak, the saga over the minister perhaps being the sole arbiter of whether someone has their citizenship revoked. It continues with one of your own, Amanda Vanstone, who was pretty candid and scathing in print today about what the Prime Minister was trying to do. She called it basically overthrowing the Westminster system of cabinet government. And the headline asks, Prime Minister, what were you thinking? Does Amanda Vanstone have a point?
Well, I would be the first person to say that process is important, but process should never be so rigid that it doesn't allow for some flexibility. So it should be able to cope when, for example, something needs to be dealt with at short notice. Now, having said that about process, I do think it's important that we focus on what the outcome is, and the outcome of the cabinet meeting was there was unanimous support for the proposal that for dual citizens who are engaged in terrorism, they will have their Australian citizenship revoked. So that was the outcome of the cabinet meeting. It was a unanimous outcome that was the same outcome, unanimous outcome that was supported by the party room subsequently. So we can talk about process forever, and process is important, but it's also very important to focus on what the outcome of that cabinet meeting was.
All right, well, you say you can talk about process forever. Amanda Vanstone does indeed want to keep talking about it because she's brought it up some 9 days after the event. The fact that such a figure in the Liberal Party and a former Cabinet Minister herself seems to feel so angry about it to go public and again question the PM's and the Immigrations Minister judgment. Doesn't that underline the seriousness of this issue within the Liberal Party?
Well, I go back to saying that process is certainly very important, and yes, Amanda Vanstone is certainly a very senior figure in the party and she has a lot of experience. Now, she's raised an issue. I wasn't in the cabinet meeting, neither was Amanda Vanstone, so quite frankly it's hearsay for both of us as to what actually went on in that meeting.
Are you saying those direct quotes that really nobody of those senior ministers who were in that meeting have denied?
Well, I think we're talking about a process of a cabinet meeting as opposed to leaks coming out of a cabinet meeting, and they're quite two different issues.
Now we know all about the process because of the leaks, and I'm just asking you, you're saying it's hearsay. There were direct quotes which nobody who was at that meeting have denied. So how can you say it's hearsay?
Well, I wasn't at that meeting, so for me it is hearsay because I wasn't part of it. I've not been ever in a cabinet meeting, so I'm not aware of what their processes are. I'm sure that there are processes that are adhered to in most meetings. Cabinet would be no different. However, if there is an issue with process, then I would think that that's an issue for other members of cabinet to be raising.
All right, but do you think she has a point?
I think process is important, but I think there's a lot of people who are making commentary on cabinet meetings and how they're governed. I think unless you're actually in that meeting, you're really not in a position to comment either way.
I guess the other point that Amanda Vanstone was making is that she doesn't feel that the minister, a politician, should be the sole arbiter to decide on somebody's citizenship. And she said the 6 ministers who stood up for their principles, she said, against the Prime Minister, even though they knew it would raise his ire. She does not think it's a good idea for a minister to be the ultimate arbiter of that. Do you agree with her on that?
I think there's actually 2 issues there that you're raising. One is a robust discussion in a cabinet meeting or perhaps even in a party room meeting, and I think that sort of thing should happen. If you're asking then my view in terms of the legislation, I think we have to go back to first principles, and that is that the terror threat in Australia has never been this high before, and the community is rightfully very concerned about making sure that there is a safe environment for them and particularly for their children. This has been highlighted largely in recent months because of the Lindt Cafe siege as well, and I think we should be very careful about dismissing the strength of feeling in the community for something to be done to ensure that we have a safe and secure environment here in Australia.
But I guess Amanda Vanstone would say you might now be mixing the issues up. She is only taking issue. She wants the government to be strong against terror. But she is taking issue with the fact that there's no judicial process involved in this. It is just the minister who gets to decide on whether to strip someone's citizenship.
Well, I think there certainly is a place for ministerial discretion with what's being proposed. I'm absolutely supportive of that. There is opportunity for judicial review, but there will be times when it is going to be necessary
isn't the review only on whether the minister has followed the process? It's not actually allowing someone to go for a legal judicial review.
Look, that's my understanding. You're right with that portrayal. And I think that there are certainly going to be some circumstances where there will be ministerial discretion that's required to bring the matter to some sort of a conclusion.
All right. I guess the other key issue out of this is the fact of a detailed leak. Do you think the Prime Minister still has all his ministers' undying support?
Well, I think that all of the Cabinet Ministers are certainly committed to a good outcome for Australia, and I would hope that they would continue to work together in the best interests of Australia. Look, I don't support any leaks coming out of the party room, and I certainly don't support any leaks coming out of Cabinet. It's appalling, and it shouldn't happen.
Do you think the Prime Minister still has his ministers' support?
I think that we are a very united party.
Did you sign Dan Tehan's letter of support for the Prime Minister on this, or did you have any misgivings?
No, I didn't sign the letter. I'm not on the backbench.
No. Did you support it? He's a good mate of yours.
Well, I actually used to work for Dan Tehan's mother.
That's right.
many years ago. So yes, look, I have a lot of time for Dan Tehan. He's certainly very well regarded in the party, and there is an awful lot of support in the backbench for a strong position on that. They are very supportive of the position that we are taking forward to legislation.
What is your electorate telling you, Karen Andrews, about this citizenship revocation?
Well, the contact that I've had into the office and to me directly has certainly been very strongly in support of it. Now, I do take the opportunity to get out into my electorate, so I hold listening posts, I go out into supermarkets, I actively seek feedback from my community, the people that I represent, on a wide range of issues.
And what are they telling you about this issue?
They're quite strong on it.
What does that mean?
That means that they are
everything the government is doing?
Yes, absolutely.
And so they want
would
the
support
minister
a stronger stance.
Right, so they want the minister to be able to cancel someone's citizenship?
They seem to be very confident with that, and what I am telling them to do is to go online and make their views very well known. Go on to citizenship.gov.au and put in a submission so that their views can be very strongly heard.
Can you explain how cancelling someone's citizenship protects us any more than cancelling someone's passport, which can actually be done now and is being done now?
Well, my understanding of the proposed legislations is that it will stop people returning from Australia to Australia, so they will have no way to return.
And that's the main point of it?
Well, I think you've also got to look, this is for dual citizens as well. Now, dual citizens largely have taken on a responsibility with their pledge to Australia that basically from that day forward they pledge their loyalty to Australia and to its people. Now, if they are fighting for a terrorist organisation such as ISIL, Daesh overseas, then they have, by their own actions, reneged on their promises, their pledges to the Australian people as part of their citizenship. And I think that there's a very strong community support for saying, well, you've actually reneged on it. You've been overseas fighting for a terrorist organisation and we don't want you back in Australia.
Karen Andrews, turning to another issue, you are a long-term advocate for the study of maths, science, technology, the lack of which is worrying the likes of the Business Council Australia Chair Catherine Livingstone. Can and should the government be doing more to promote and advance science and technology, the study of it in schools, then at university and then in industry, and ensuring there are jobs for graduates?
Look, there's certainly a lot of work that we need to be doing in that space. There has been for a number of years, and there's been a lot of consultation. The Chief Scientist in particular has done some outstanding work on setting an agenda basically that the government is in the process of responding to now. Whilst we don't know exactly what the jobs of the future are, we know what some of the likely skills are going to be. And there's probably 3 core skills that we know 75% of jobs of the future are going to need. Firstly, it'll be data analysis skills, we are amassing huge amounts of data, and we need people who are going to be able to analyse that data. We need people who are going to have strong skills in statistical analysis, and we will need people who can write computer code. So those are the three skills that we know will form the basis for at least 75% of jobs into the future. So they're the areas that we need to start working in. We also know that the key target age group is between year 5 to year 8. So around the 10 to 14-year-olds are the groups that we need to impact on, because at that point they either start to lose interest or they're entirely engaged in maths and science. So we're starting to do work to see what we can do to influence the influencers of those groups, and we know that there's 4 distinct groups. There's certainly the career advisors in your early secondary years who will have an impact on what these children are going to look at with subject choices for jobs that may be available in the future. Certainly the teachers, and we know that we need teachers who have a very strong grounding in maths and science. We know that the teachers are, the principals are a third group that we need to impact, because they're the ones that are promoting the best possible ATARs or OPs as well. And finally, but perhaps very importantly, are the parents, because they're going to be looking at their children getting the best possible results at school so that they can move into jobs of the future. So I see the role of government is to look at what we can do with each of those 4 target groups. And if I could perhaps add to that, there is a German model. Germany, some 10 years ago, determined that it had an issue with STEM skills, which I think is amazing. But they've actually started implementing in kindergarten some science programs, and those are already starting to be rolled out in Australia.
Well, let's hope you have some good luck with that. Just one more issue with regard to marriage equality. There was a Reach Tell poll in your safe Gold Coast seat of McPherson. 69% of voters, almost 70%, support the free vote for all MPs, 20% are opposed, and 11% still undecided. Does that result push you towards wanting a free vote inside the coalition?
Look, I'm entirely relaxed about a free vote. I have taken the view now that I will listen to discussions in my party room. I'll listen to what my colleagues have to say, but I would be entirely relaxed about a free vote.
Would you want one?
I'd be happy to go with a free vote.
All right, Karen Andrews, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you.